Good evening and welcome to Conversations with the Candidates, brought to you by the League of Women Voters of Houston Education Fund and Houston Media Source. Tonight we'll be talking to candidates for City Council at-large position 4. Remember, if you're a voter anywhere in the city of Houston, you can cast your ballot for any of these candidates on November 3rd. I'm Chris Banks, and this is my co-host, Fran Watson. Fran, would you like to introduce the first candidate?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Our first candidate tonight is Lori Robinson. Lori Robinson is the majority shareholder and owner of Project and Vendor Management Advisors, located right here in Houston. Lori has over 22 years of large-scale program and project management, regulatory compliance, internal audit, government affairs, and policy experience in the areas of healthcare, housing, and disaster management and recovery industries. Lori, we're here to talk to you tonight, so we just want to jump in and get to our first question.
Okay,
so
thanks, Fran.
Thanks for coming by.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and get started. First question we have for you is that Houston has been ranked the 15th worst major city in terms of income inequality.
Yes.
What are your plans to bridge the gap caused by this?
Yes. You know, it all starts with education. It really, when you look back in your history and Chris's history, you guys are both attorneys and went to law school, but not a lot of people have that opportunity. It really starts with pre-K, getting people into pre-K, getting pre-K funded, and getting students starting school early so they can have a better chance of continuing school. I think that if pre-K is a concentration and then kindergarten and up until the 3rd grade with learning and it's funded, I think that we'll have a better start as far as like getting into the job force. They say that by the 3rd grade, the state starts determining how many jails they're going to build or how many colleges they're going to fund. I think that's a pivotal issue. We start elementary all the way through, we can get people to maybe go to college or get vocational training. One of the things I'm doing in my work right now is getting funding for pre-K through 12 supportive services. I think it's very important for students to have a safe place to go after school, to get tutoring and or vocational training. At least, you know, they can have somewhere to go and learn something at the same time and improve their opportunities for jobs. It comes down to education to be able to get good jobs, and that will help the economic development and economics in Texas.
So, under the Houston City Charter, we have a very strong mayoral system, very strong mayor system. And city council members don't, by charter, have a lot of powers delegated to them. So with that limitation, how will you affect change as a city council member?
I think it's all about collaboration. You have to be able to collaborate with your colleagues closely. You've got to be able to collaborate with the mayor and come up with ideas and solutions that are fresh and that actually can work. So what I've been doing was sitting down talking to other current city council members about my ideas, even the outgoing council members, just to pass things through them to see how would this work, what do I need to do to start setting this up. For example, my after-school program, I've been talking to C.O. Bradford, who's currently in the seat, about continuing his City Connection program, which is an after-school program. I've also talked to a few other council members about the economic development in their area, because that's another area that I'm concentrating on, in infrastructure, just getting ideas about what happened with Rebuild, what we can do with Rebuild, and then talking to the mayor candidates as well, just to see where they are according to the ideas I have and if we can collaborate and work together, because either you can be a collaborator or you can be adversarial. I'd rather be a collaborator and work together to get things done, or at the same time, I would be adversarial to get things done. So it's about collaboration first and trying to get on the same page and present your ideas so that people can see where you're coming from and what you're going to concentrate on. And I think that's how you alleviate the strong mayor forum, because if you have talked to the mayors before, they'll know if you get elected into office what your concentration is going to be.
I think we're going to switch gears a little bit and kind of go into an issue, issue that's we've seen going around Houston, but Houston, we just want to know, how will you vote on the Houston Equal Rights Ordinance? And after you answer that, why are you voting that way?
Yeah, I think at this point in time, first I want to say why. I'm going to start with what I think about it. You know, the other day when the Supreme Court came down, people started asking me, what does this mean? What does it mean? And the thing about it is I tell people all the time, listen, this is about protecting you from discrimination, no matter if you're white, black, Hispanics, sexual orientation, or anything like that. It's about protecting you. But the ordinance has been so controversial that I think people are thoroughly confused when they don't need to be confused. So I came up with an idea. I said, you know what, we need to unite to rewrite. I think right now, if we take and just start all over again, get a group of people who are on the opposing side and the defending side to come together and sit down and have a collaborative discussion about rewriting the ordinance. I think that will be the best solution for the city going down the way. This is dividing the city completely, and I hate to see that. Everybody loves Houston, and we don't want to see a division. Why not take the energy and the money that it's going to be and sit down together and rewrite the ordinance? So I would say at this point in time, we probably need to repeal it if that's an option, and really start all over again together so that we can work together to get it done.
Well, according to the Texas Supreme Court's ruling, at this point, as it goes on the ballot, it will either be we would vote yes for the ordinance or no for the ordinance as it stands.
I don't think it's too late to go back to the Supreme Court and ask, because at first the Supreme Court came down and said that you either had to repeal it or you had to put it on the ballot. I think we have time until August 30th to ask the court if we can go back to the original one, and we can unite to rewrite. And I think that will take. Think about this, Fran. All the money both sides are going to be using to fight this on both sides. Why can't we take that same money, put it together, and get senior housing? Why can't we take that money and take it for homeless LGBT youth and give them some place to live? Why can't we unite to where it's not controversial, we all agree upon it, and we can push it out and get it done? It could be done by the end of the year if we worked on it.
So we just have a couple minutes left, so we just wanted to give you that closing time to talk about why Houston City voters should elect you for Houston City Council at large position 4.
Yeah, I'm coming to Houston, and I'm doing this because I feel like I am a collaborator. I think that I go down and I talk to people to see where we stand, and I try to come up with solutions to issues and problems. You know, it's about living together. The reason why they made the at-large positions and the whole city council positions nonpartisan is because we all want the same things. We all want safe neighborhoods. We all want good quality of life. We all want fairness. We all want to be able to live here in harmony. And one of the reasons why I'm running for city council is because I believe I can bridge those gaps. I believe that I have the skills to be nonpartisan and actually to work with everybody to come up with solutions. That's what it's going to take to tackle some of our solutions. I have the experience. I've worked with the city in 22 departments over this time to bring money back to the city, to be able to make sure the city is viable. And that's what I like to do. I don't want to see the city divided because of all these different issues. I want to see it come together, work together so that we can live together in harmony.
Thank you so much. Next up, we're going to take just a minute break, and then we're going to have our next candidate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next up, for Houston City Council at-large position 4, we have candidate Roy Morales. Fran, could you introduce Roy?
Sure. Roy Morales is a business owner and that focuses on information and alternative energy technology, crisis management, and education improvement. Roy is nationally recognized as an expert on disaster planning and homeland security. In 2006, Roy was elected as Harris County School Trustee, representing approximately 1 million residents in Precinct 1. During his 6-year term, Roy consistently voted to either freeze or lower your property taxes. So let's welcome Mr. Roy Morales.
Well, thank you so much for having me here this evening.
Well, that's good. Glad you were able to come. I know we're on a time limit, so let's go ahead and just jump right into it, give you a few questions.
Okay.
So our first question, and the same as we asked before, Houston has been ranked the 15th worst major city in terms of income inequality. What are your plans to bridge the gaps caused by that?
Well, my whole plan is about growing our business. That's what's important. So we all have the ability to earn a living, to send our kids to school, and just enjoy Houston. My plan calls for bringing businesses here, being a business-friendly city. We should never have lost Toyota to San Antonio. We should never have lost Exxon to the Woodlands. We want companies to come here. We want the city to be business-friendly. When we're business-friendly and these companies come here, that means jobs. That means good-paying jobs. We're not talking about jobs just at a fast food restaurant. We're talking about jobs that require trades, require skills, and that's how we overcome inequality.
So the Houston City Charter has a very strong mayor system, and city council members really have little power delegated to them under the charter. So faced with these limitations, how are you going to affect change as a city council member?
Well, I think that I have a good rapport with all of the candidates that are running for mayor. They know Roy Morales. They know Roy Morales takes on projects and succeeds, just like in the Air Force and just like when I was with the Houston Emergency Center. I was able to come in and bring that project in on time for Mayor Brown, ahead of schedule and $12 million under budget.
Well, we're going to go ahead and switch gears, and we're going to move into a specific issue facing Houston. First, we'd just like to ask, this is a two-part question. How will you vote in November or October early voting on the Houston Equal Rights Ordinance, keeping in mind that the Texas Supreme Court has ruled that it would either be a yes for the ordinance or a no to vote against the ordinance? And if so, and after answering that question, why are you voting that way?
Why am I voting that way? Well, this ordinance is really, we're there to protect women. The whole issue now is about men having the ability to go into women's restrooms. I have a daughter, and I have concerns. Maybe it was perception before, but I'm concerned that it could be reality. So I stand on voting no to protect women.
So there's a variety of factors that people use when they make decisions as city council members. Can you name 3 primary quality of life indicators that you would use when you're making policy?
When I'm making policy, it's real easy. It's about, is this going to be good for the Houston economy? Because at the end of the day, we want jobs here in the city. I want people to succeed. The best way for anybody, any family to come up like my family did years ago from poverty is to have good paying jobs. And that's my focus, is to bring jobs here, create an environment where we have a good quality life because we earn a good living. And when you have a job, that is the best feeling in the world.
So just like name 3 are the most important that you would look at.
Jobs, jobs, jobs.
Okay.
Well, now, if elected to city council, you will be representing all of the people in Houston. How will you ensure that you are representing all of the people?
Over the years, I've traveled the 640 square miles of this city. People think I live in Kingwood. People think I live in Clear Lake. Some believe I live over on Memorial somewhere. Some believe I live in Spring Branch because I travel. It may be West Belfort. It may be the Belfort in the Asian community, the East End. People see Roy Morales everywhere.
So just one more question, then we'll go into closing. Houston has a problem with obesity, and it's a problem that's exacerbated by food deserts. So what can the city do to increase access to fresh fruits and vegetables and other food in these areas?
Well, I think that, I mentioned fast food restaurants before. We do need to get rid of these food deserts. If you look at the east end of town, or you go to District D, you see food deserts there. We need a quality of good foods like you see in other parts of the city. And that's why I believe, again, growing the economy, having good jobs out there, infrastructure, fixing our roads. You look in some of the minority areas of our city, our roads are horrible. If you don't have good roads, you don't have good infrastructure, you can't get those food markets into those areas. We need to improve those as well so we can get rid of these food deserts.
Okay, well, we just have a couple minutes left, and we just wanted to kind of turn it over to you for a last word. Why should the voters of the city of Houston elect you as their at-large position for council member?
Well, first off, I'm a retired lieutenant colonel. As a matter of fact, I'm the only candidate in this race with an honorable discharge. Actually, I have two of them. I come with credibility, duty, honor, country, education, life experiences brings wisdom and good decision making. I've been trained by our government, I've been trained by our city, and I have continued my education even up to this point. I bring ideas that are going to make this city the greatest city on this planet.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, we'll take just a minute's break and we'll have our next candidate up in just a minute. Thank you. Welcome back. Next up, we have Larry Blackman for City Council at-large position 4. Fran, could you introduce Larry?
Of course. Larry has served under the leadership of 3 Houston mayors, Lee Brown, Bill White, and current Mayor Nice Parker. In 1995, Mayor Lee Brown appointed Larry to serve on the Houston Industrial Board, the Houston Higher Education Learning Board, and the Houston Health Facilities Board. Additionally, Larry was recently appointed as Houston Independent School District Advisory Team Member. This collective helped oversee the $2 billion construction project for the new Jack Yates campus facility. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, look, I know we have a time limit, so we'll go jump right into it.
All right.
So our first question of the evening is, Houston has been ranked the 15th worst major city when it comes to income inequality. What are your plans to bridge the gap based on that fact?
Well, you know, Houston, I've seen Houston move from being the cow town that it used to be to the boom town that it is now, with people moving in constantly every month. Actually, we're setting a record on that. So there are job availabilities, but we can do even more. One thing that I was proud to be a part of is the partnership, public-private venture partnerships that I'm dealing with on the boards that you just named. And with that, that brings jobs, it brings economic opportunities, and it brings contracts, subcontracts, and all of the things that Houston needs. But the main thing is that we want to spread it all over Houston.
So, under the Houston City Charter, the mayor has a lot of power. It's a very strong mayor system.
Yes.
And city council members really don't have a lot of power under the city charter. So faced with that limitation, how do you intend to affect change as a city council member?
Well, as you know, a at-large city council member is at large all over the city. And so they don't really come under the scrutiny of the mayor. you're more or less an independent person when it comes to being an at-large person, because you don't have a budget. You have a budget for your staff, but actually you're supposed to doing exactly what I want to do, and that's be an advocate for the people and help the other single member district members with their various projects, all of the good projects.
All right. Well, we're going to switch gears and go to an issue that is going on here in Houston, and that has to do with the Houston Equal Rights Ordinance.
Okay.
Okay, we have a two-part question for you.
All right.
First one is, how will you vote for the ordinance, keeping in mind that the Texas Supreme Court just ruled that a vote for yes is a yes for the ordinance, and a vote against is a vote no, right? So, one, how will
So
you
with
vote?
that being said,
Well, yes, how will you vote, and why will you vote that way? However you choose to vote.
well, let me say this. First of all, I'm the oldest person in the room, oldest person in the race, and so I have witnessed discrimination. I was one of those people that actually had to ride on the back of the bus. I came up through segregation, so I know the difference in the two. I think the biggest thing about this ordinance is that people are not satisfied with the restroom. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, with the restroom situation. Out of the 36 pages that I understand the ordinance is about, I think that everybody in Houston is willing to pass it except for the restroom. Now, me personally, I just taught my granddaughter how to pick out men's restroom, women's restroom. And if she goes into the women's restroom, that the little picture is on there, and a man comes out of there, he's gonna really feel uncomfortable, because I don't think that that's really fair to her. So with that being said, I'm all for the equal rights, except that part that I think Houston is having a big problem with. I think that single part of going into the restrooms is the actual problem. If you take that out, I think it passed with a breeze.
So how will you vote in October or November?
As a person or a council person?
What is your stance on the Houston Equal Rights Ordinance? How would you vote on
If that ordinance, if the restroom ordinance is taken out, I'll be all for it.
Well, I'm just asking, how will you vote as it stands, that the ordinance that protects 15 classes, how will you vote this November?
This November, if the ordinance is as it is, with the restrooms being in it, correct?
I'm just asking how you...
No, that's what with the restrooms being in it, I can't vote for that because I can't teach the kids that there's an exception.
Well, I think it's time to move on.
So every person, when they're elected to council, makes decisions based on a variety of different factors.
Yes.
So what are 3 quality of life indicators that you would use when you're making any decision as a city council member?
Well, there's 3 things that you have to be. I think that the local government should be responsible for. Number 1 is safety. Safety first. The next thing is education, and the next thing is quality of life. And those are my 3 very, very, very points that I advocate. I've been an ex-school teacher for 33 years. I've been doing this. People crowded in my classrooms because this is what I taught. I taught the 2-party system. I taught how people need to get along. I taught equality. I taught how things should be and should not be and how you should carry yourself. And exposure is the key. And if we expose our people to all of the things that we should, let's not be exclusive, let's be inclusive.
All right. I think that point leads us into the next question.
Okay.
If elected as city council member, you'll represent all of the people of
Absolutely.
Houston, right? So how will you ensure that you are representing all of the people?
Well, you're looking at somebody who's been part of the community the whole time. I haven't just popped up. For over 33 years, I taught in all 3 school districts, the North Forest School District, HISD School District, and also the Fort Bend County School District. And that's when you have to go into the community. That's when you get to know families, when you get to know neighborhoods, when you get to know the grass tops as well as the grass roots in the neighborhood. And so I can assure you that I will be at every community function. We have, I know you smiled at that and you said, well, how you going to do that? Well, it was a guy by the name of Councilman Greenwood that had this position before. And that guy made it to everything. He'd have on a t-shirt in the morning and he'd have on a tuxedo by the evening. And that's what I intend to do.
So one of Houston's big problems is obesity, and that's a problem that's greatly exacerbated by lack of access to fresh fruits and vegetables and other produce and other food. These are called food deserts. What can the city do to address food deserts?
Well, I'm glad you weren't talking about me. Yes, we advocate of, I used to work for Parks and Recreation back in the day. And one of the things we did was emphasize physical fitness. Now, looking at me now, you couldn't tell it, but if you talk to some of my ex-students and the neighbors and the people in the neighborhood, I did advocate physical fitness in all facets. So that includes walking, running, bicycling. Every now and then I'd go. I never went to Memorial Park, but I did go to Rice and go around there. So I'm a familiar face at Rice University going around the track. So yes, the food deserts that we're talking about need to be addressed. Yes, we need to get off of a lot of unhealthy foods. We do need more fresh foods. We do need the gardens that we have now in the various neighborhoods. And so, with that being said, I'm a total advocate for physical fitness in every form.
We just have a minute left, so we want to give you the last word. Why should why should the voters of the city of Houston elect you their city council member for at-large position 4?
Because I am the only one that have the experience, the expertise. And for the past 14 years, I've been working with the city and in the city government. I'm the oldest one in the race, but with that being said, I still have the desire, the zeal, and I have the vision and the passion to make sure that the city moves forward in being the best city in the nation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Just another minute break, and we'll be back with another candidate. Our next candidate for at-large position 4 is Amanda Edwards. Fran, can you talk about Amanda?
Yes. Amanda Edwards is an attorney and native Houstonian. Currently, Amanda practices law at Bracewell and Giuliani in Houston, right here, where she solves complex issues relating to tax-exempt bond financings, public and private partnerships, community development projects, and nonprofit organizations. She has served as the president of the board of directors for Project Row Houses in the historical Third Ward community and on numerous other civic boards and committees. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you for having me this evening.
Thank you for being here. We want to make sure that you're able to use all your time, so we'll jump right into the questions that we have. Our first question is this. Houston has been ranked the 15th worst major city when it comes to income inequality. What are your plans to bridge the gap caused by that fact?
Yes, that's actually a great question and relates a lot in large part to our campaign for City Council. The motto of our campaign really relates to moving all of Houston forward, and that's in large part because there are several different aspects to the city, and some of which are succeeding and very successful in terms of opportunity, economic growth, but others of which seem to be being left behind. I think it's critical that we focus on providing opportunities and also opportunities for training for people in terms of our workforce, opportunities for sustainability as it relates to education, but also as it relates to jobs that are available and on the market. We also need to be cultivating small business opportunities as well. And so there's a variety of fronts that we think that we need to look at in connection with actually providing opportunities for families and individuals to be more sustainable, to bridge that gap in terms of that disconnect between sustainability and those that are not.
So Houston has a very strong mayor system per the city charter.
Yes.
And city council members really don't have a lot of power that's delegated to them by that document. So given those limitations, how will you affect change as a city council member?
I think it's critical that you first, as a city council, be able to have vision. So I want to come to city council and bring that conversation to the forefront in terms of a vision for where we want to go. And that way it creates an environment where you can then be strategic about policies that will drive you in that direction, wherever you've decided you want to be as a city. I think it's important when you have 16 people around a horseshoe that you have a very collaborative work style, and that is, in fact, what is my experience. And so I'm very familiar with working with people, and you've got to have a humble leadership style as well in order to get 16 people around the table to move forward, and that's what I'm committed to doing in council. So although it is a very strong mayor form of government, I think that if you're collaborative and your mind is focused on a vision for your city's future, you can move forward and do that collectively.
So we're going to move into one of our ballot initiatives for this fall, the Houston Equal Rights Ordinance. So I have a two-part question for you. The first part is, how will you vote on the Houston Equal Rights Ordinance based on what the Texas Supreme Court has said, where you would either vote yes for the ordinance or no against the ordinance? So one, how will you vote? And the second part is, why are you voting that way?
Okay, absolutely. To answer your first part, I would vote yes in favor of HERO, the Houston Equal Rights Ordinance. And the reason why, I think it's very important that the city of Houston does not discriminate or have the appearance of allowing discrimination to occur. I think that's important for us to make sure that we are embracing all of our residents and making sure the laws and protections for all of our residents are properly extended. So I would definitely vote in favor of HERO.
So every city council member has different things they look for when they're making a decision. What are 3 quality of life indicators that you're always going to look at when you make a decision of how to vote on Houston City Council?
Absolutely. I think you always want to look at questions that relate to job creation in terms of opportunities for economic development. So you look at job creation, but you also look at, in terms of communities, how are we promoting a healthier lifestyle for people? So that relates to access to greenways, for example, and sometimes it might be a very simple issue like not having street lights, which then preclude people from actually accessing the parks that they might have in their neighborhoods. And then finally, we want to make sure that we're looking at the question as to whether or not it's the most effective way to achieve the goal. And so when you're thinking about a lot of the conversations about complete streets and conversations relating to things of that nature in terms of what neighborhoods want, again, you want to focus on those policy areas that would make you put you in a better position so that you're making it more convenient for the residents to actually want to be in that destination.
Well, if elected as city council member, you will represent all of the people in Houston. How will you ensure that you are representing all Houstonians?
Yes, I think it's critical that you keep an open line of communication. And when you have an open line of communication, truly listen when you actually are opening that line up. I think leadership is all about listening and taking it in and informing yourself. And so for me not to listen means that I'm not equipping myself with the ability to actually be an informed decision maker at the table. So that's first and foremost, is to keep that line of communication open, always listen, and keep an open door policy. Make people feel welcome in terms of their feedback feedback. They may have an expertise area that you may not be familiar. Equip yourself with the knowledge so that you can be in a position to make really good decisions for the city, and that is encompassing of all the Houstonians in the city.
So one of Houston's big public health problems is obesity, and it's a problem that's greatly exacerbated by food deserts.
Yes.
So what can you do as a city council member, and what can the city do to increase access to fresh fruits and vegetables and other foods that will lead to a more healthy lifestyle?
Yes, great question. In fact, I've spent quite a bit of time on that issue with the Houston Area Urban League. I led an initiative to examine that exact question in terms of childhood obesity. And again, food deserts relate to childhood obesity because people don't have access to fresh produce and fresh foods that are affordable. One of the things that I have done prior to my time now running for office, working with an organization called Project Row Houses, with trying to bring a co-op into the 3rd Ward area, and we've done that. Another thing that we have to do if I'm elected on City Council is look for opportunities to create incentives for fresh produce or vendors for fresh produce to be located in food deserts. I think that's important. You hear a lot about people talking about incentives for a variety of things, but very little is said about incentives for those type of those type of needs in our community, and that's what we need to be encouraging and incentivizing with our policy. So I definitely would be committed to that.
All right. Well, we want to give you the last word.
Okay.
So why don't you talk to the voters of the city of Houston and tell them why they should elect Amanda Edwards for Houston City Council at-large position 4.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me. I'm running for Houston City Council at large position 4 because I want to be a part of long-term change in the city of Houston. I think it's critical that you have someone at the table who has passion, who also has the skills, but brings vision to the table in terms of moving all of our Houston neighborhoods forward. I'm committed to doing that. My background puts me in a position to be able to do that. So I ask for your support. Amanda Edwards for Houston City Council at large position 4. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll take just a minute's break, and then we'll be back with another candidate for City Council at-large position 4. Welcome back. Next up for Houston City Council at-large position 4, we have candidate Matt Murphy. Fran, can you tell us about Matt?
Sure. Matt Murphy is a military veteran, family man, business and civic leader. He is a 4th-generation Houstonian. He is currently a certified fire protection engineer and continues to help protect lives and property. He also served as a precinct chair for his neighborhood and is actively working to restore the vision of Houston's founders of equality and prosperity for all. Welcome, Matt Murphy.
Well, thank you so much for having me tonight. It's fantastic to be here. So.
Well, good. So we'll go ahead and get into the questions.
Sure.
I know you don't have that much time. So our first question, which we've been asking all of the candidates this evening, is Houston has been ranked the 15th worst city when it comes to in terms of income inequality. What will you do to help bridge that gap based on that fact?
Well, I think one of the things that we've seen when it comes to inequality, when it comes to wages and everything, is really kind of a lack of education in the involvement of the community and understanding that the qualifications doesn't necessarily have to be on gender, class, race, whatever. It has to do are they qualified. And so I would be an avid proponent of a person who's actually going to stand up and say, look, we need to make sure that this is transparent. Everybody's getting the same pay and has the opportunity to get the same pay based on their qualifications and not based on who they are, but based on what they are and the character and what they are as a person and as a worker, instead of the person who's actually who, either female, male, gender equality. When it comes to whatever their sexual preference, whatever, it should always be transparent and equal.
So, in the city of Houston, under the city charter, we have a very strong mayor system. And city council members really don't have a lot of power that's delegated to them under that document. So, faced with those limitations, what will you do as a city council member to affect change?
One of the things that I've wanted to see is to see that if there is a consensus of 5 or more, 6 or more, something like that, a discussion of council members that can come together, then they can actually have an opportunity to put something on an agenda. And I would like to see that happening. But obviously in that situation, we have several mayors that are running in this race right now, and no matter what, no matter who gets elected, as a city council member, I have to work with that mayor, and you may not agree with everything that they agree with, but you lobby and you work with them, and you always try to go for the same thing, and make sure that we're working for the same equal opportunities to get things that are going to actually help the city.
Okay. So we're going to switch gears and talk about one of the ballot initiatives this fall. We have a 2-part question. First part is, how will you vote on the Houston Equal Rights Ordinance based on what the Texas Supreme Court has said, that you would either vote yes for the ordinance or no for the ordinance? And the second part is, why are you voting that way?
Well, obviously this is a new thing for everybody to switch, because if you were going to vote yes, now you're going to vote no. If you're going to vote no, now you're going to vote yes. So this is something that was brand new, that was just put to us in the last 24 hours or so by the Texas Supreme Court. I am for equality when it comes to everyone across the board. I want to make sure that everybody understands that. I also see that this particular ordinance has really kind of divided the city. And it's been really, really bad in the situation that friends that I've had are completely on the opposite side of where I am when it comes to that. And I don't want to see that. I want to see the city that's unified together and coming back together, educating and having the opportunity to speak and be able to have equality amongst each person. And I didn't like that part of the ordinance. I also didn't like the implementation and the written things, and I also didn't like that the city that actually made the ordinance itself was excluded from any parts of the ordinance. And so, with that being said, I'm going to be voting no personally for the ordinance in November.
So every city council member has different things that they look for when they're making a decision on how to vote on city council. Can you name 3 quality of life indicators that you would use on every decision?
I think one of the things we can talk about quality of life situations is our whole campaign has been about neighborhoods and knowing your neighbors and everything else. And so having a good community, a strong community, is a big quality of life issue. And so you want to have good streets. You want to have a balanced budget. You want to have ultimate safety within the streets and the communities that you're doing. And I think by being able to introduce neighbors into neighbors and getting them introduced, where you know your neighbor across the street, you know your neighbor next door, that actually makes you have a better voice to get better streets, better voice to be able to focus and keep the elected officials more accountable, and have better schools, have better crime prevention. Because if you know your neighbor's name, you might not agree with them on everything, but you're obligated to look after them because you know who lives in that home. And so I think those are the things that we should, as a city, be entitled to do, and be able to give that neighborhood a bigger voice to be able to do that is really a big deal. And making sure that the neighborhoods aren't split up because of major issues of tax rates and everything that's being increased. That's why we have the thing called the zero displacement revitalization, where we want to make sure that all of the neighbors over 65 already know that there's a tax cap. But anybody who's lived in a neighborhood for over 20 years, we want them to have the same opportunity to have a tax cap. And then anybody at a certain poverty level would also have that tax cap. So if you're seeing the revitalization of all the neighborhood, they need to take advantage of it too, instead of being displaced because of the taxes that are getting out taxed of the neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm. Well, if elected to city council, you'll be representing all of Houston and all of Houstonians. What will you do to ensure that you are representing all of Houston?
Well, one of the things that I've done in everything I've ever done in my past is I've always looked at the issue that's in front of us. And I've looked at both sides of the issue, identified the problem, looked at both sides of the issue, and then figured out a process that unifies people together to the solution. And so I think that's a trait that we want in any council member and any mayor that's going out. We want to have them to be able to have that same mentality of unification and be able to bring the city stronger together. And so I think that's a representation that goes across the whole city of Houston. Of course, being an at-large candidate, we represent the whole city. And whereas a district person, they have the tendency to focus on the issues of their district and what's going on with their district and vote for the city. But in reality, an at-large has a greater opportunity to look at the bigger issues. And those bigger issues in my eyes are the pension issues that we're having, unsustainable pensions. Well, we have a budget that really needs to be balanced and some sort of sunset review put in together with the departments, and then strengthen the communities throughout the whole city of Houston.
So one public health crisis that Houston faces is childhood obesity. And one of the major factors in that is food deserts. So what can the city do to increase access to fresh fruits and vegetables and other healthier foods throughout these food deserts?
Well, my wife is a pediatrician dietitian. She actually works on that, and so I agree with you completely that obesity in childhood is a very big issue. And when it comes to, I actually live in the Third Ward area, and there's not a grocery store within walking distance of where I live. And so I think what we have to do, though, is for a grocery store to want to come in and build something and do something like that, then you also have to revitalize the neighborhood and get it inviting. They're not going to come unless they have customers. And so we have to be able to bring a neighborhood and build the neighborhood up and do that as well. But in the meantime, we also need to be able to figure out other ways that we can do it. When I was in Leadership Houston, we actually talked about, putting together a truck that would be able to come in and bring produce and be able to sell produce in local markets. And I would actually like to see more fresh markets and local markets be able to be utilized in all of the areas and neighborhoods around the area. Because fresh fruit, I grew up in a very, very small town where you can go to the fruit stand and you can get it going. And I'd like to see that more happening in the neighborhoods.
Well, we want to give you the last words. So if you could tell the voters of the city of Houston why they should elect you, City Council at-large position 4.
Yeah, well, I have to say, no matter what, the city of Houston is the greatest city in the world. We are one of the most diverse cities in the world. And I want to represent that. I want to represent you. I want to unify everyone that's here in the city so we can come together and make Houston a better place, better than what it already is. We put a man on the moon. We built one of the greatest Astrodomes, the greatest thing called the Astrodome, and we've seen a diversity and change. We've dug a ditch that we call the Houston Ship Channel. Those are things that make us great, and we want to be able to do things that can make us great again. And putting somebody in there that can focus on fiscal responsibility and think of it conservatively, so that way we're not actually going to lose our city because we have opportunities that we can really gain and have a better opportunity. I'm a person who's always looked at the problems, looked at both sides of the issue, identified the problem, and find a process to get to the solution, and we've successfully done it. And I hope I can do it as well as your city councilman for Houston City Council at-large position 4.
Well, thank you so much. We just have one more candidate for City Council at-large position 4, and we'll be with him in just a minute. Welcome back, and we have our last but not least candidate for Houston City Council at-large position 4, Jonathan Hanson. And Fran, can you tell us about Jonathan?
Sure. Jonathan Hanson followed in his mother's footsteps into the education profession to pursue his passion to eradicate ignorance in one domain in particular that greatly impacts and seems to mostly mystify the public: economics. He has taught economics for the past 5 years and also coaches competitive swimming at the Summer League, high school, and USA Swimming Club levels. Welcome, Jonathan Hanson.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So we'll just go ahead and jump into it. You're our last candidate. And so we've been asking the same question all night. And it's Houston's been ranked the 15th worst major city when it comes to income inequality. What will you do to bridge the gap based on that fact?
Well, I think that income inequality is really just kind of a symptom of a lack of opportunity in the city. And so what I think that the city government can best do is actually get out of the way of the private sector so that the private sector can thrive and create more jobs that will allow people at every income level to find employment and to find meaningful employment that will allow them to increase their position in life. And right now we have a particular problem with our permitting system, where if you listen to businesses all over the city, they're actually asking their realtors and to find them property outside of the city of Houston because they find it so difficult, given the regulatory environment in the city, to do business in the city. And so we're driving those opportunities outside of the city by making it so difficult on businesses to operate, which is driving those opportunities for jobs at every income level outside of the city. And so we really need to reform the city's permitting process to make it more streamlined, to be sure that the permits that we're requiring are actually materially advancing public safety and not just making it more difficult on businesses where they just pay a fee in order to get a piece of paper, whereas they could move outside of the city limits and not pay that fee to get a piece of paper, and really public safety isn't affected one way or the other. So I think we've got to really look at the regulatory environment in the city of Houston so that businesses can continue to create those opportunities, create jobs in the city. And once we create those opportunities, I have every confidence that Houstonians will take advantage of them.
So under the Houston City Charter, we have a very strong mayor system, and really city council members aren't delegated a lot of power under that document. So what will you do as a city council member, despite those limitations, to affect change?
You know, you're right. A city council only basically gets to vote on the things that the mayor allows council to vote on. And so I think in order to be an effective council member, I think you have to be persuasive, actually. That's basically, if there are things that are not on the mayor's priority list, you have to be able to basically build a persuasive case to the mayor and build support in the community and on council in order to have those issues that you think are important, that need to be addressed, brought up. And so what I've tried to do in particular is on my website is basically kind of lay out a lot of policy positions and lay out my evidence in order to kind of build a persuasive case. And that's what I would do on council as well to the mayor if I felt that there was a need that wasn't being addressed, which is basically marshal facts and persuasive arguments and community support in order to have those issues addressed.
Okay. So we'll move into a ballot initiative that'll be taking place this fall,
Right.
and that's the Houston Equal Rights Ordinance. So the two-part question is, one, how will you vote on the ordinance, keeping in mind that the Texas Supreme Court says we'll vote yes for the ordinance or no for the ordinance, or no against the ordinance.
Okay.
And however you vote, why are you voting that way?
You know, I got into this race really to talk about the city's finances and the terrible position that they're in. And I understand that as opinion leaders, people want to know what their city council, what their leaders, how they would vote on these issues. I mean, but really, I think it's important to realize that the city of Houston, the Houstonians will decide, you know, the fate of this ordinance, no matter who gets elected to council. Me in particular, I think that getting back to the regulatory environment in the city of Houston, Mayor Parker herself, she said that Houston has a well-known reputation as a very open and tolerant city, and I agree with that. We've been a city that's welcoming to everybody who's come here, and that predates Hero by a long measure. I mean, Mayor Parker herself, as an open lesbian, was elected to Houston City Council at large in 1997, 1999, 2001, as our controller in 2003, 2005, 2007, and then in 2009 as the first openly lesbian mayor of a major metropolitan city in 2009, 2011, and 2013. And we didn't have Hero till 2014. So I think that Hero was a well-intentioned ordinance, but I feel like it was more of a solution really in search of a problem. And I don't think that we have a problem with that it was trying to address, basically. So I will be voting no on it. I would have voted no on council as well. Not because anybody is pro-discrimination, but just because we actually don't have that problem in the city of Houston.
So, city council members use a variety of factors to make their decisions. Can you tell me what 3 quality of life indicators you're always going to look at when you're trying to decide how you're going to vote on Houston City Council?
3 quality of life indicators. The indicators that I would use would be, is it an efficient, is it going to make how the city government operates more efficient? Are we going to be using taxpayers' dollars efficiently? I think it's important to realize that the city government doesn't actually produce any revenue. All the revenue we get is hard-earned money that's being forked over by Houstonians, and I think as stewards of that money, we owe it to them to spend their money efficiently. And so we need to make sure it's an efficient use of resources. Is it going to increase economic growth in the city of Houston? Is it going to make it, is it going to grow the economy, or is it going to create burdens on the city, on doing business in the city that outweigh the potential benefits of the regulations? And really those are, and I guess public safety would be another one. Does it materially advance public safety? So those are the 3 that I would take into consideration.
Well, we want to give you the last word. So why don't you talk to the voters of the city of Houston and tell them why they should elect you Houston City Council member for at-large position 4.
Sure. I got into this race because I was basically very concerned with the way the city has been running. As evidence, I think primarily the most physical evidence of the poor management of the city is actually the state of the city's infrastructure. We see our roads deteriorating all around us. I'm the only candidate in this race that is proposing or supporting a solution to the pension problem, which is the impetus of our deteriorating infrastructure, by moving to a defined contribution system from a defined benefit system. And really that is the only way that we will find a structurally balanced budget so that the city can deliver the core city services that Houstonians demand and deserve of their city council. And so I plan to bring my financial and economic knowledge to bear on council in order to address the critical issues facing the city of Houston. And so that's why I hope to earn the support of Houstonians.
Well, thank you so much. And on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Houston Education Fund and Houston Media Source, I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in tonight. And I'd like to remind you that if you'd like to watch again, or if you'd like to forward this video to a friend who is making his or her decision, you can check out our Vimeo channel at Vimeo. For more information on this upcoming election, and as a reminder, if you're a City of Houston voter, you can vote for any of these 6 candidates for at-large position 4. Check out vote411.org. Thank you so much.